Following his admission of pride and self-exaltation, the speaker moves into a deeper and more uncomfortable territory. If the first stanza exposed the attitude that governed his heart, this stanza reveals the actions and beliefs that emerged from it. The stanza begins with a confession. I have judged, I've hated. The structure of this line is simple, yet its impact is profound. The repetition of I have creates a rhythm that resembles a personal testimony or confession. The speaker is not speaking about abstract ideas. He is speaking about his own actions. He is taking ownership of his behavior. Notice that he does not soften his language. He does not say that he occasionally misunderstood people. He does not say that he sometimes made mistakes. Instead, he uses two powerful words, judged and hated. Both words carry significant moral weight. To judge another person is to place oneself in a position of authority over them. It involves reaching conclusions about their worth, character, beliefs, or actions. Judgment is not always wrong in itself. Human beings constantly evaluate situations and behaviors. However, the type of judgment being discussed here is different. It is a judgment rooted not in understanding but in superiority. The second word is even stronger. Hated. Hatred goes beyond disagreement. It goes beyond criticism. It goes beyond disappointment. Hatred involves a deep rejection of another person. It creates emotional distance. It strips away empathy. It reduces the ability to see another human being as complex, flawed, and deserving of understanding. By admitting both judgment and hatred, the speaker is confronting aspects of himself that many people would prefer to hide. There is courage in this confession. Most individuals find it easier to identify their virtues than their failures, yet the speaker deliberately chooses to expose some of the darkest tendencies within his own character. The next line explains the source of these attitudes, not for truth, but for difference. This line may be one of the most important statements in the entire poem. The speaker is making a distinction between truth and difference. Truth suggests an objective reason for criticism. It implies that judgments are based upon evidence, principles, or reality. Difference, on the other hand, refers simply to the fact that another person is not the same. They may think differently, believe differently, look differently, live differently, speak differently, come from a different background, hold different values, or simply see the world through a different lens. The speaker realizes that many of his judgments were not motivated by a sincere search for truth. They were motivated by discomfort with difference. This realization represents a major shift in self-awareness. When people are trapped by pride, they often convince themselves that their opinions are correct, simply because they are their opinions. They assume that disagreement must indicate ignorance, weakness, or inferiority in others. The speaker now understands that he fell into this trap. Rather than approaching differences with curiosity, he approached them with judgment. Rather than seeking understanding, he chose rejection. Rather than recognizing the humanity of others, he focused on what separated them from himself. This realization broadens the meaning of the poem beyond a personal confession. At this point, the poem begins addressing a universal human tendency. Throughout history, many conflicts have been fueled not by truth, but by difference. People have divided themselves according to race, religion, nationality, politics, social status, culture, and countless other categories. Again and again, difference has been mistaken for deficiency. The speaker recognizes that he participated in this pattern. The stanza then reaches its most significant moment. And now I see, these 4 words mark a transformation. They represent a moment of awakening. Throughout the earlier parts of the poem, the speaker has been describing who he was. Here, he begins describing who he has become. The phrase suggests clarity. It suggests illumination. It suggests that something previously hidden has finally been revealed. The speaker is no longer trapped within the perspective that once governed his thinking. He has gained enough distance from his former self to recognize what was previously invisible. This moment is important because self-awareness rarely arrives all at once. Often it emerges gradually. A person begins noticing contradictions, recognizing patterns, questioning assumptions. Eventually, a moment arrives when scattered realizations combine into a clearer understanding. The words, "and now I see," capture precisely such a moment. What follows is the realization that changes everything. The fault I condemned lived also in me. This is the heart of the stanza. It is also one of the most powerful lines in the entire poem. The speaker discovers that the very flaws he criticized in others existed within himself. The significance of this realization cannot be overstated. Earlier, he believed he occupied a position above those he judged. He imagined himself separate from their weaknesses. He viewed himself as different. Perhaps even better, now that illusion collapses, the fault he condemned was not confined to other people. It was present within his own character. The line reveals one of the most enduring truths about human nature. People often recognize flaws in others before recognizing them in themselves. Arrogance notices arrogance in others. Dishonesty notices dishonesty in others. Pride notices pride in others, yet the same traits often remain hidden when they exist within one's own heart. The speaker finally realizes that he was condemning reflections of himself. The qualities he disliked in others were qualities he had failed to confront within his own life. This realization destroys the foundation of his superiority. How can a person claim moral authority over others when they possess the very faults they condemn? How can someone judge others harshly while remaining blind to their own shortcomings? The speaker now understands that genuine wisdom begins with self-examination rather than criticism of others. This realization introduces a new quality into the poem, humility. Humility emerges when a person recognizes that they are subject to the same weaknesses, struggles, and imperfections as everyone else. It is not self-hatred. It is not self-degradation. It is simply an honest recognition of reality. By the end of this stanza, the speaker has crossed an important threshold. In the first stanza, he recognized the presence of pride. In this stanza, he recognizes the damage that pride caused. He sees how it distorted his perception of others. He sees how it encouraged judgment and hostility. Most importantly, he sees how it prevented him from recognizing his own flaws. The realization is painful, but it is also necessary. Without it, growth would be impossible. Without it, transformation could never begin. And it is this painful recognition that prepares the way for the next stage of the poem, where the speaker begins confronting not only his past mistakes, but the deeper question of what kind of person he wishes to become.